So pretty. Look at that sheen. Hey guys, welcome back to the Clean Beauty Code. I'm so excited for this video. We're talking blush. We are talking new powder blushes, and I thought it would be fun to do a side-by-side try-on and then also talk about the blushes comparable to other powder blushes in my collection. Anyways, we're talking Tower 28, their new powder blush that just launched, and then we're also talking about the Saie Beauty powder blush that just launched, and I'm really excited. Of the two, the Tower 28 one is the newest, but I have been testing that one for a little bit because I did get it sent to me, which is so nice, and I'm really excited to talk about it, do swatches, do a try on and comparison. Anyways, I digress. Let's jump into the video. So if you're excited for this video and more videos like this, then please like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into this new powder blush video. New powder blush, let's jump right in. I'm really excited. So we have two new blushes. We have the Saie Beauty blush and the Tower 28 blush. We're gonna try one on one side, one on the other, and kind of compare and contrast them and compare and contrast the other ones in my collection that I talk about a lot. Anyways, we have, again, the Saie Beauty blush here, and then we also have the Tower 28 blush here. We're going to start with the Saie Beauty blush, and I was really excited to get my hands on this because this is a radiant blush. It's also one that is a baked blush. I was really excited. This is the shade Mia. Look how stunning that is. Just the sheen is gorgeous. Let me do a quick little swatch on the palm of my hand for you so that you can see. So that is the shade here. Look how pretty. Oh, stunning. And I'm going to actually use, I have a lot of brushes that I like to apply powder blush with, but a lot of the time it's between two blush like brushes. So it's one like this, that's a duo fiber brush. I actually have two of these because I'm just obsessed with this brush. But then I also like to apply with a brush like this that is fluffier. And that's kind of the way that I like to apply my powder blush the most. I have other brushes that I like, but those are my most grabbed. Anyways, we're going to do this brush because I have two of them. So we're going to dip in. I'm going to use this side of the brush that has nothing on it. Dip in to the Tower 28 one just so you can see. And look how pretty that is. It is pigmented. So what I'm going to do is I take some off on the back of my hand because blush gets away from me quick every single time. And I'm going to just very lightly apply this. And because I don't want it to be too intense at first. I don't want it to be a mistake immediately. And we're just going to kind of build it up till we're happy. But even here, I'm really happy with that blush already. And I don't really feel like I need to add more. So what do you think of the shade, the sheen? I really, really like this shade. And it just kind of melts into the skin. The formula is very... It's not super, super soft in a good way, but it's soft enough that you get pigment, but it's not so soft and pressed in the pan so hard that when you dip your brush in, it's already, you're like, oh no, this is a mistake. It doesn't have that kind of soft quality to it. So when you dip in, I did like a 1-2, it wasn't with this brush, but a 1-2, and then brushed it off on the back of my hand and then applied it. And I really, really like the way that it looks, the way that it melts into the skin, and it doesn't get patchy, which I really, really love. Because sometimes when you put powders on top of, let's say, your foundation or whatever, it can get patchy, right? Because powders on top of creams and whatever can get a little bit funky. And I don't like to powder my cheeks, so that's also, sometimes you get some patchiness from that, but it is really, really pretty. I really enjoy the shade, and this is a shade that I feel like in spring, the shade Mia right here, I'm gonna grab all the time. They have a bunch of beautiful shades, and I'm just overall a really, really big fan of this formula, and especially the shade. They had this really, really bright pink that I almost got, but I was like, I'm not very gonna be wearing that very often, so I went with something that was true to what I would wear. Now we're gonna move to the other cheek and the other blush. And the other blush we have today is from Tower 28. This is their new matte blush that they just launched. I think it launched the other day. I don't know if I said this in the intro, so I'm gonna repeat myself. they did send me this, and I've been able to try and test this out for about a month, which is really, really nice. And let's get into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to swatch all the shades. We're going to pick one to wear and or apply, and then we're going to talk through my thoughts and all of that. So the first shade that we have here is Sawtelle Slushy. It's very pretty, and I'm just going to dip in. And then I'm going to just do it on the back of my hand with the other one. This is Sawtelle Slushy. I'll do this so you can really see it in all its glory compared to the Saie Beauty blush. Then we have the shade Samo Spritzer, which is a really pretty shade. And I'll do a little swatch for you on the back of my hand with this too. And this is Samo Spritzer, so you can kind of see it. And I'll do the same thing so you can kind of see it compared to the Saie one. It's such a pretty shade. I'm just obsessed with it. And then we have this one here, which this type of shade is so my vibe. It is the Long Island Iced Tea. And although shades like that kind of are like, oh, it's kind of boring, it's not, I swear. And especially if you're someone who shies away from really intense blush, but you want something more, nude style blushes are the best. So I'm going to do a swatch of this one. And this is Long Island Iced Tea, just so you can see. I want to make sure we're kind of moving it around as much as we did with the other ones, just so you can see it comparable. So although it looks so boring, I feel like when you swatch it, it looks boring. It is not boring. It is for sure, the one that I've been grabbing the most. I do feel like to make my cheeks kind of look somewhat even, we're going to go on with this one, which is the Samo Spritzer. This one is so beautiful. I've also been loving this. So I'm going to dip in with a brush, and I'm going to take it off on my hand because it's very pigmented and I don't want it to get away from me too quickly. And we're going to apply it just look how pretty that already is. Ugh, I'm obsessed. And just brush it on. You can also just tap it on or whatever. I just really like this brush works really well for just brushing the product, so you don't feel, and it doesn't move the makeup underneath. I mean, look at how stunning that is. I love both these blushes. So let's kind of talk through the difference here. So this is a baked blush. It has a little bit more of a sheen, as you can see. And I know so many people love a baked blush. Even though it's a baked blush, I don't find that it has really big glitter particles or anything like that in it. It really is more of a sheen. Just want to make sure you're seeing that. It really is more of a sheen. It doesn't feel disco ball-y or glittery. And the bits of sheen are so small that it isn't looking like you are kind of pulling an Edward Cullen. There's nothing wrong with that, but you know, that's not everyone's vibe for what they want on their cheeks. It's a very minimal, easy kind of sheen that feels like you can still wear it every day, and I really, really like that. And with the Tower 28 one, again, this is more of a matte blush. To me, it's more of a soft matte, and it doesn't cling, which is so nice. It doesn't cling to dryness, which is great because right now I have some eczema on my face because we're transitioning into seasons, and anytime spring is coming, all bets are off on breakouts, eczema, and all this stuff kind of comes out, especially because I have such bad allergies. So the second I'm starting to sneeze a lot, which I am, you can bet your bottom dollar that my skin is going to be having a time, and this isn't clinging to those things, which is really nice. And when I put it on top of something with kind of dew to it or a sheen, if it is a powder, like if I've layered these two, which I have, the sheen still kind of pops through, the dew still kind of pops through, but in a more toned down way, which is really nice. I really love the way that both of these blend, I mean, you saw me apply it, so you'll have to let me know your thoughts down below. What do you prefer? Do you prefer the Saie blush or do you prefer the Tower 28? For me, it's really dependent on occasion which one of these two I'm grabbing, because it really depends on the look. Now, in general, I tend to right now gravitate towards more sheen like blushes, and we're going to talk about those in a little bit. However, there are other sheen blushes that to me are not as good as the Saie Beauty one. When it comes to matte blush, which is generally my go-to for like weddings, events, or something where I just want kind of a more soft glam type of look. I love a blush like this. And what I love about this is it doesn't get patchy. And when, I mean, you saw me kind of swipe it on as opposed to just like pat it on. When I swipe it on, I'm not feeling like I'm making a patchy mess, which is great. And that is also the same with the Saie Beauty blush. I really enjoy both of these. And again, it's for by occasion for me. Sometimes for every day, I do prefer a matte. So I've been grabbing this a ton, but mainly in this shade here in the Long Island Iced Tea. When I want something that is just easy, I love a powder blush. Powder blush in general is my favorite because like it just lasts longer. It wears, in my opinion, on my skin a little bit better throughout the day when I'm wearing a powder blush. I always like to set my like cream blushes and all of that. Unless I'm testing, then I'll do kind of different methods. But I like to, for most days, set my creams with a powder, and these are both formulas that I like to set them with. Now let's compare and contrast to other blushes. So I have a few matte ones I want to talk about and a few ones with sheen that I talk about on this channel or our newer launches kind of in the blush space. So first, one I do not stop talking about, the Bare Minerals bronzer. I have 4 shades because I have a sickness. I know. I know I'm the problem. Like, it's not even a question. So the Bare Minerals bronzer. Let's get the most similar shade. I think it's this one. Yeah, Kiss of Pink to the other one. So this is Kiss of Pink of the bronzer. It also has a sheen to it. So we're going to do just a little swatchy poo of this next to the other blush. That is both of them side by side. It's so pretty. Look at that sheen. I can't. I actually feel like Kiss of Mauve was probably more similar now that I think about it. But either way, look at that sheen. So what I will say is I feel like the Saie Beauty blush has slightly, like very ever so slightly, but slightly bigger particles, but very, very minimally different. And the Saie Beauty one is pressed in the pan a little bit harder than the Bare Minerals bronzers. But I mean, I talk about this nonstop. It is so good. And right now, my 2 most worn shades, not that anyone asked, but I'm going to share, is Kiss of Pink or Kiss of Mauve. Kiss of Mauve is more of a kind of cool tone shade. But both are just, look at that, just so absolutely stunning. And I grab them nonstop. The one that I've had the longest is the shade Kiss of Pink. And then I got Kiss of Copper, Kiss of Rose, and then lastly I got Kiss of Mauve. But they're just so stunning, and I'm a really big fan. Again, another formula that doesn't really cling to anything or anything like that. Now, if I had to pick between these 2 formulas, it's really hard to say because they are very, very similar. What I would say is I might grab the Bare Minerals bronzer more just because it's packed in the pan a little bit lighter. So it feels like I don't have to dip in as much to get as much product. Like one dip in the Bare Minerals one is, I'm good. I'm set. I don't need any more. Whereas I feel like in the Saie Beauty one, I need to dip in like twice and then maybe a third time if I feel like I want to build up even more. But they're both really, really nice and apply just so like gorgeously, and they both don't cling, they both don't patch off. I am just a really big fan. What do you guys think if you've tried both of these? Then the next kind of sheen baked blush that I want to talk about is this one from Kosas, which is, I think, out of all of the ones, the newer. It was kind of maybe halfway through last year this came out. So this is the blush. I got the shade Hype in this one. It's very, very bright. Now, this is another baked blush. What I will say about this formula is I feel like it's a little bit too packed hard in the pan, in my opinion at least. It could be packed a little bit lighter, not because I don't get any pigment, but because of the way that it kind of gets on the brush. And then when I apply it to my cheeks, I do feel like at times, not always, but at times, depending on where my skin's at, I can get some clinging. I'll do it above, actually. All right, so we have it here. So this line going down this way with the sheen is the Kosas blush. So it has a very similar look. To me, it is, although it is reflecting nicely, both the Saie Beauty and the Bare Minerals one have a little bit more reflection. I feel like the Kosas one, where my skin is right now, is clinging a little bit more than I would like. However, that just is kind of par for the course when you have some dryness or some eczema, depending on the type of dryness you have and the skin prep. Sometimes you can get some clinging, and that's just kind of life, but I really like it. If I had to pick between the Kosas and the Saie Beauty one, do them side by side just so you can see, I would go Saie Beauty. For me, I just like the way that it blends on the skin. I also kind of prefer the sheen, although they look kind of similar. The Kosas one has a little bit less of a lit from within sheen, in my opinion, and it's not like it's glittery or anything, but there's something about the particles in this blush that this blush doesn't have, and I don't really know what it is, but for me, the sheen is just different. I feel like you can even tell from the way that the light is reflecting on them, but they are a little bit different. It's not anything like the Kosas is bad, but if I had to pick between the two, I'm going with the Saie Beauty one for sure. And then if I'm picking between the Saie Beauty and the Bare Minerals, I'm going to go with Bare Minerals. However, I still really like the Saie Beauty, and I'm going to be grabbing this a ton, and it'll definitely be in some favorites. Another blush with sheen that I know so many people love is the RMS Beauty, their Hydro blush, or is it Hydra? Hydro blush, not Hydro. And this is the shade Bohemian Girl, and this also has a sheen to it, and I love this blush. And I don't really have any space left on the other hand, so we're going to go here. So this is that blush here, and it has such a beautiful sheen to it. I'm going to do it next to the Saie Beauty blush just so you can see. And that is the blush here. So we have, on this far side, we have the RMS blush, and right here we have the Saie Beauty, just so you can see a difference. The sheen is really similar to me. I would say the particles in the RMS one are just a little bit more, like a slight amount bigger, but not so much bigger. They both have a softness to them, but I would say that the RMS one, when you swatch it and kind of touch it, it is a softer powder. However, it is packed in the pan, not quite as tight as the Saie Beauty one, whereas the Kosas one is definitely packed the hardest in the pan for sure. And that's kind of just the difference there, but I really enjoy this. If I had to pick between the two here, for me, it's kind of a tie. I don't know. For me, I like them both equally, and I just overall love both these formulas. Now let's talk about the Tower 28 blush. So this blush I love. It gives like a nice blur. It doesn't cling to dryness, which is ideal. Now, comparably, I feel like the Haus Labs is one that a lot of people kind of talk about and love, so I wanted to talk about it in this video. This is the shade Fire Moon, by the way. I'm going to do a swatch for you. So this is Fire Moon right here. And this is also a matte blush, but matte in the sense where it's, again, a soft matte. It's not so matte where your face looks flat. It is really, really pretty. Now, the difference between these formulas is I feel like the Haus Labs formula is a little bit more on the soft side. And that's not anything bad that the Tower 28 one is a little less soft, because it all kind of applies really similar to me, at least in my opinion, but there is kind of that difference. I do find that when I dip in with a brush, the, the House Labs one immediately takes them off on the back of your hand, because if not, it can get a little dicey. I still do that with the Tower 28 because it can get dicey too, because you can apply way too much and then get stuck because they are so pigmented as formulas. But I feel like, again, the only big difference is I feel like the House Labs one is a little bit softer. I also have in the House Labs, I have three shades. So I also have this one here is Pomelo Peach. It's so pretty. This is like the spring blush of dreams. And then I also have Hibiscus Haze, which is a gorge. And I mean, look how pretty. It's just gorgeous. But the formulas to me are very similar. The only difference, at least on my cheeks, is just, not even cheeks, but like when I'm dipping in, I notice that the House Labs one is a little bit softer. And I do find that the Tower 28 one, when you tap into it, you get slightly more kick up, but not anything that's alarming or kind of powders going everywhere. But that's something to note. Between the two, if I had to pick formula wise, they're, in my opinion, really similar. I maybe would go with the Tower 28 one just because of the shade options. I feel like they have just a lot more naturally, neutrally shade options, whereas I feel like the House Labs has brighter, more vibrant. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's kind of the only reason I would probably go with the Tower 28 one. But they're both very similar to me. Again, I would just say that the Tower 28 one, the shade options are just something I prefer, but they're both great formulas. If you like something that is a little bit softer and that's important to you, the House Labs one is probably going to be the one for you. However, they're both great formulas. Now we're going to talk about another matte blush, and it is this one from Jane Iredale, and this is their matte blush in the shade Sheer Honey. I love this blush shade. Again, another kind of boring blush shade, but I just love it. Let's kind of hold it up and compare the two. So this one is Long Island Iced Tea. This one is Sheer Honey. Both look beautiful on the cheek and both look really boring in the pan, but I like them both equally shade wise. I would say if I want something that it packs a little bit more of a punch, I would go with Sheer Honey. However, to me, on my cheeks, they look really, really similar. There isn't that stark of a difference. I would just say maybe depth-wise, the Sheer Honey's a little bit more. So here we have Sheer Honey from Jane Iredale. For me, I would say that in terms of packed in the pan and softness and powder, these are the most similar of all the blushes that we have talked about. And they kind of wear and perform similarly to me. I would say that the Jane Iredale one is a little bit more like powdery, but not in a bad way. It just kind of fluffs up a touch more. I would say that in terms of powderiness, these two are really, really similar. So this is kind of a merge. The Jane Iredale is kind of a merge between these two blushes. If I had to pick between these two, I would say it's honestly with these very, very similar. I think I maybe prefer the Tower 28 one slightly more. However, I'm a really big fan of both of these. And then lastly, for matte blush, we're going to talk about another Bare Minerals blush. Okay, if I could open this, that would be great. And this is their Gen Nude Powder Blush in the shade Spike a Rose, which is just, look how stunning that shade is. So cute. I'm going to do a swatch of Spike of Rose for you. Okay, so up here we have Spike of Rose. This is such a pretty shade. I'm obsessed. What do you guys think of this shade? This is a really good spring and into summer shade. I really loved wearing this last year. I'm just such a big fan. In terms of preference between these two, for me, they're pretty much tied. I love the both of them. I would say that the feeling of them is pretty similar. I would say that maybe the Bare Minerals one is slightly softer, but overall the formulas are very, very similar to me. And in terms of shade range, I kind of prefer the Tower 28 one, but they're both great and I like to grab them both. I would say that the Bare Minerals one, depending on kind of the time of year sometimes, and it's like so few times, I could probably count on my hand. Actually, no, I can count on my hand how many times this clung to something very lightly by the end of the day, but they're both pretty much the same to me. But I just kind of prefer the shade range of the Tower 28 more, but I'm a really big fan of both of these. And yeah, that is it. That is kind of my comparison of the Tower 28 and the Saie Beauty blushes. Both are great. I really like both these formulas, and which one I prefer kind of depends on the makeup that I wear. Since I do right now tend to wear makeup with more of a sheen more, or blushes with more of a sheen more, I have been grabbing this one a little bit more when I'm not testing. However, both are beautiful formulas and I'm a really big fan. I would love to know down below, have you tried these? Are you interested in either of these? Let me know down below. And yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.